I'd like to welcome everyone to the CO podcast series, Stroke Matters. A special thank you to Advocate Aurora Healthcare for sponsoring this podcast. My name is Christine Winnicky, CO Director. The topic for today's call is yoga therapy. I would like to introduce our presenter for today's call. Laura Jane Murphy, founder and director of Yoga Among Friends, has been changing people's lives for 3 decades. She has led classes, seminars, and workshops throughout the world for leading organizations and individuals. Laura is known for her depth of knowledge, practical wisdom, and unique ability to transmit yogic teachings and practices to students from all walks of life. She enjoys blending her clinical and counseling training in psychology with her yoga therapy certification to provide her clients with a holistic approach to psychological and emotional imbalances that affect the immune system. Welcome, Laura Jane.
Thank you, Christine, for giving me an opportunity today to share with your community. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. What I'd like to do is just maybe do a question and answer with you, if that works for you. And my first question to you is, what is yoga therapy?
Okay, that is a huge question, and I love it. Because yoga, first of all, is a confusing word. We learn language. We come into the world and we get communication. How brilliant. Our mind learns language. But my mind has a bias around words. And first of all, yoga has a big bias. And most of the people in the world think of yoga as a physical fitness exercise, or even worse, some kind of cult or religion. And neither are truthful. Yes, we do practice different tools. And so yoga therapy is a therapeutic model because yoga is a teaching of the mind. And the mind is in your physical body. We are a mind-body instrument. And because of this connection to our thoughts, everything manifests physically because we know that thoughts become matter. So your body holds memory. And memory is lodged in the cells in your DNA and your blood. And yoga is tools to refine the mind so that we can actually experience our body and feel it. So instead of thinking, we feel. So yoga is not just an exercise. It's not an outcome. It's a practice to bring the mind inward. So yoga therapy is a 5-dimensional system. I work just with your body, but with your breath. I work with your thoughts and behaviors because we know that all the thoughts will lead to your behaviors. And I work with your mood because mood is attached to the thought, to our lifestyle. And I can influence and help alleviate suffering by cultivating a practice. And yoga therapy is developing a practice using all of the yoga tools. And so the yoga tools are movement. We know that from the physical postures. It's breath work, which we know from awareness that the breath links the mind to the feeling, to experiencing your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system I can influence. But it also is an awareness of your thoughts. And so instead of thinking the thought, we begin to feel. So you cannot tell a roaming mind to stop thinking. So instead, I direct your mind into a focused perspective. And this is why yoga is meditation. It's refining the mind so that we're able to sit and calm the system and begin to focus the mind. And I promise you that heals the immune system. It changes our perspective on things. And so we start to unlearn patterns and we develop better patterns, healthier patterns, movement in a direction that alleviates those struggling thoughts and those attachments to old memories. So that's a lot in one sentence, but yoga therapy is a huge, huge, wonderful, holistic field. And people are starting to recognize this.
And Laura, when you had mentioned it refines the mind, it's so appropriate for our stroke survivors who have had a brain injury. So, I mean, what better example of that and something to do than yoga therapy, the movement, the breathing,
brilliant.
The thoughts, the meditation. It's perfect for our stroke survivors and the caregivers who often also, you know, I mean, it's just as helpful for them when they're caring for their loved one who's had a stroke.
Oh, it's so true because most people think they can't do yoga. I'll hear every day, I can't do yoga because, again, You see through your eyes, you see people doing these crazy contortion poses, and you think that's what yoga is. No, yoga is many, many tools. In fact, I work with stroke victims all the time because a stroke victim, one, has the thought. It wants to move the arm, it wants to move the leg, and the brain is just not hooked up at that point. But we can gradually bring attention to that refined area. I can bring and direct the attention there. So even if I just touch the hand, there's a memory pattern of touch, sensory awareness. Now I can have a memory and I can go into it through my breath, through calming the mind, instead of struggling to get where I think I should be, which is this harsh taskmaster. I have the patience to say, no, I'm right where I am. And I can tell any little movement, a teeniest little movement in a fingertip, I know something's starting to move. Now, the grace of this is practice. Just like everything in life, we have to rehab from the physical body to the mental body to the emotional body, is repatterning. And so we assume we have to get to this outcome right away. So we put more stress on ourselves. So I alleviate the stress by giving people a tool to accept, be present, calm the nervous system. And when we're in the parasympathetic nervous system and not in flight or fright, the brilliance is the body starts to heal itself in such profound ways. And that's a loving kindness approach. And yoga is based in loving kindness, not in expectation, not in competition, and definitely not in feeding our fear. So we have to stop that adrenaline running and all that tension. Of course, stroke, what happens is we're in panic, we're in escalating. It's terrifying. So we have to calm the nervous system, giving people tools to breath work, giving people to move the finger, and we call it movement of the hand. So when I take my thumb and I move it up my index finger and then move it down, just that teeny little bit of movement, if I can get that, I can get sensory blood flowing and get that conscious, focused mind, not the expectation of agenda or that striving mind that causes the nervous system to start to react. But I can get the mind to be focused enough to calm the nervous system and experience this profound grace that comes forward. And that again is all experiential. Even me talking about this makes no sense to the intellect because the intellect doesn't understand it. And it never will, because the intellect is based in my familiar pattern of habit and learned and identity. And, going through a stroke or anything, we lose that sense of performance or that identity. And part of the grief and part of the emotional work is what yoga therapy helps with too. And the caregivers go through so much, especially people that are home and struggling to maintain all the different roles we have in the world. I nurture the inside. And if we can nurture our inner life, we can perform those roles without expectation. We have to be perfect. This is really about learning acceptance and basic understanding of tolerance, words that we hear, but we don't actually experience. They're not palpable to the intellect. But to the intelligence that I work with, that is organic to every living human being, we begin to experience this profound grace. And I call it grace because it's truly a miracle of experiencing something greater than my little mind.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's such great advice for our stroke survivors and our caregivers. Just wonderful. I want to ask you another question. Mm-hmm. So if someone's coming to do yoga therapy, what do they wear? Is there like special clothing they have to wear, or what do
Well, I think that people, again, assume that this is all a physical exercise class. No, I work with people in a chair. If you're even in a hospital bed, if you're sitting and you can't get up and down off the floor, your clothes are not your defining who you are. I mean, we just say comfortable clothes. Why put clothes on you that are restrictive? Because maybe I want to be able to eventually get movement with the arms above the heart. You see everything with gravity. Gravity is our greatest nightmare and our best friend, because gravity helps with our oxidation of our blood, our muscles, our red blood cells. It oxidates the heart. But to lift your arms is huge effort because we're working against gravity. And so what I want is even that spine, just a little bit of sitting upright in a chair will make an entire different perspective for your whole mood of the day. And so just something that's comfortable to sit upright in a chair, to have comfortable clothes, that you don't feel restricted, that your neck is not tight, that we're arms, we have movement, just so that you feel mobility is available to you and possible. Doesn't mean you're going to get there because every day is a new experience, but we want to be comfortable. And it has no identification with how good you look, because that's one thing we have to get rid of, the ego and the attachment to, I'm not good at this, or I don't look right, or my pose isn't as good as hers. I mean, this is unfortunately what our Western world has created in a kind of industry of the yoga business. But yoga is a service. It's teaching you to accept where you are, be loving and kind, and watch how the mind will go to judgment. And so clothes are a big part of that inner kind of judgment that we've identified. My body doesn't look good, or I used to be able to look like that. And we've attached so much on that we cause such self-harm. And again, yoga therapy is teaching self-love, which is different than self-pleasure or attachment to getting happy. This is an experience to be present and accepting and loving where you are. And in our world today, that is not taught in our outer existence. So these are new ways to shift the thinking of our familiar into an awkward place, and start to recognize, wow, all learning is awkward. Every human being is learning something new today, and hopefully moving in a direction that's less of a suffering.
I loved that, Laura. I just loved that, you can wear whatever you want, be whatever, it's not about how you're dressed or having the nicest clothes or what you look like. Because I think that's one thing that we do see, you're not sure you're going to fit in, and we want everybody to fit in and everybody to benefit from yoga therapy. So that is awesome.
Really, it's a practice of accepting loving kindness, that, that we age, we get older, life is going to change. These are the truths of life, that our body is adjusting to all kinds of environmental struggles, emotional struggles, mental. And if we can every day just do little ways to nurture, and this is what yoga teaches us, to nurture the inner light, not just this outer attachment to, what am I going to get from this? What am I going to get? And when we're in panic and we're sick, we want to get better. But that's pushing, and that mental competition that we've learned so much, that I'm not good enough where I am, is so self-harming to the healing practice. So, yeah, good.
I have another question for you. How would I find a good yoga teacher or a good yoga instructor or studio, or how do I do that?
Well, again, these are what you need, so you have to ask, what is it that I need from a teacher? And, some people, want to jump into a kind of fitness center, and it's available to them, and they move. And bravo, it gets you into movement. It gets you into starting something that, moves you in a new direction. But you want to be able to have a teacher that meets you where you are. And this is really an important principle. If you have a teacher and you walk in and the studio is assuming to do a headstand, or they've made the identification that yoga is all fitness, it pushes you. It's actually a kind of moving you out of your comfort zone too quickly. And so we want to be met where we are, which is, when we first walk into any class, it's awkward. We're frightened. We don't know what we're doing. We feel so seen as less than. And so you want somebody to meet you at a place of, no, you're right where you need to be, and feel safe. So safety is the number one, because I will tell you, we're primal animals. My sympathetic is wired in survival. And if I don't feel safe, I'm going to put up resistance. I'm going to put up some armor. Yoga can be very foreign to people. If your bias and your opinion is that it's a foreign kind of voodoo experience, and you don't like, being told to do a Sanskrit word or something that's foreign, you're going to resist it. And so our biases protect us in a way. And yet yoga is saying, you know what, that's fine. We're not going to change you. We're not trying to rip that away, but we want to offer a possibility that there's another way. But if you go into a class and someone's assuming they're right and you're wrong, or their way is better, or they're pushing you too much, step back and say, thank you very much. It doesn't feel safe today. Really, it's important to try different yoga classes, meet different teachers. And as you're going through, see if they're really certified in yoga therapy. It's a credential. It takes years. It took me, a doctorate of going back and forth to my teachers. It was 7 years after my master's program and being a marriage and family therapist. I went back to school to learn these tools and to use the tools appropriately. If I handed you a knife and I just threw it at you, is that an appropriate way to use a knife? No, you would get cut and I could harm you. Or if I hold the knife in the wrong way, I'm harming myself. So we have to learn appropriate ways to use the tool. And that's what a teacher therapist is learning. There's breath tools, there's meditation tools, there's visualization tools, there's physical body asana tools that everybody sees. But these are tools. We look at about creating a garden. You want all the proper tools used appropriately. And a well-versed teacher is going to understand this.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. My last question for you before we conclude is, what does namaste mean?
I love that question because there's a lot of controversy in the world right now on this, and a lot of in the South and around the world. And people, again, these are what does it mean that if I'm saying this at the end of class? And Sanskrit is an ancient language. It was an auditory language, thousands and thousands and thousands, all learning was auditory. And sound is a brilliant healing. We know with sound therapy now, we know with ultrasound, with all the ways that sound is light. And light is this vibrational sensation. So the vibration of the word namaste is a vibrational greeting. It's hello. It's a hello, but it's not just seeing your outer. It's not just seeing the body and the form and identifying like, okay, that's gender, that's a male, that's, whatever I see with my eyes. It's saying I'm seeing you. Well, who are you? Who am I? Am I this body, this image, this role, or am I a soul? Am I something deeper? And so namaste is a greeting to say, I'm really seeing inside. I'm seeing who you are, that beautiful light, that special gift that I'm seeing in you. Oh my gosh, that's in me. Maybe we are the same light. Maybe we are the same essence. And maybe at some place I can meet you in loving kindness. That's what it really means.
Yeah,
It's a greeting.
That's an excellent way to kind of conclude this call. That's absolutely excellent. Well, I would like to thank you again, Laura Jane, for being our presenter. If you'd like to listen to today's podcast or past podcasts, you can visit the CO website at www.sseeo.org. Thank you. And thank you again, Laura.
Thank you,